Hey, and welcome to another Main Contained Fishing podcast in association with Paddle and Fin Network. On today's episode, we are going to talk about finding the best honey holes here in Southeast Georgia to kayak bass fish. So stay tuned and we'll get the show started. As always, like, subscribe. My YouTube, my Facebook, I have Instagram. Make sure you get over to Paddle and Fin Network. Find them on YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, all the audio media outlets there are to stream and to listen while you travel. So we are going to discuss where and when you come to the state of Georgia, especially in the Southeast, where you can find the best honey holes to fish. So we'll be right back after the show. All right, let's get this thing kicked off. Let's find out where you can catch your trophy bass here in Southeast Georgia. We have many fisheries here in the state of Georgia, throughout the whole state of Georgia. But me living in the southeast part, out of Savannah, Georgia area, we have some good fisheries here in the southeast part of Georgia. I'm going to start with the local parks and recs area, just because I have access to them. And anybody in the Savannah area or the greater Savannah area, hey, travel down, fish some of these fisheries. We have some good fisheries here that Chatham County Parks and Recs has, one of the most, and it's a little finicky, but you can always find a guy that's always fishing there that will tell you how to catch these bass out of Lake Mare. Lake Mare is located off of East Montgomery Crossroads in Savannah. You can find this stuff on YouTube. We're talking about a nice public fishing park that is ran by a county government, and it has monster bass in it. I've seen some 7, 8, even 10 pounders come out of there. In my experience, what I like to fish with in Lake Mare, it depends on what type of year. This year, going into late summer, our days here in Georgia are extremely hot right now. So I would suggest maybe throwing some big worms, deep diving crankbaits, maybe some finesse stuff. Shaky heads, Ned rigs, drop shots. I know in particular a guy I fish with a lot, Cleveland Walker. He's been catching them on frogs, fishing next to the bank. This place, the bank kind of drops off real steep, real quick. Got a lot of, I call them elephant ear plants. I don't know what they're actually called, but I call them elephant ears because they look like big elephant ears. But these fish that get tucked underneath them root systems, and throwing that frog in there and just bank beating that frog is something that he enjoys. Cleveland's a heck of a fisherman, and he catches some big bass out of Lake Mare. Moving on to another area, it's right down the road from me, right here by my house. I'm less than 2 miles from it. Is El Scottsdale Park, also ran by the Chatham County Parks and Recs. Got a lot of submerged grass. I got on a chatterbait bite there one day, and boated about 4 or 5 fish that average weight probably about 2 to 3 pounds. But a couple years back, I was throwing a jig in there, finesse jig, and ended up catching one about 6.5. But yeah, these local parks that you have around your area, or if you're traveling in the southeast part of Georgia, look them up. They are great fisheries. They're great to have in your backyard where you don't have to travel a whole lot, and they can produce you big fish. In the kayak world, we go by inches, not pounds, but some of these fisheries offer 20, 21, 22-inch fish, which is a huge amount of length. They're lengthy, so yeah, just look them up. Just go to your internet, type in local parks and recs that have lakes around you. If you're traveling to the Savannah area or anywhere in the southeast, look me up. I will direct you. You can find me at SEGKBF.com and I will direct you to where to go. Just reach out to me. Like I said, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, things like that. So kind of going to the next level fisheries is, I would say, your state parks or your public fishing areas ran by your state agency. The Georgia Department of Natural Resources, they put a lot of time and work in these public fishing areas for us here in Georgia. But I just kind of want to hit some of the highlights of anything from, I would say, the Macon area down here in South Georgia. Some of the fisheries, public fishing areas we have here are Evans County PFA. Like I said, the PFA stands for Public Fishing Area. So anybody with a Georgia resident or non-resident fishing license can fish these areas. Most of them kind of kick back and go back. Some of them have camping areas. Some of them have where you can park your RV or your camper. You can tent camp. You can primitive camp. So take advantage of them. Going back to Evans County PFA, it's 30 minutes from me. I've caught good fish in there. It has 3 lakes, or one big lake. I would call them medium-sized ponds. On the big lake, there's a lot of submerged timber. There's lily pads to fish this time of year. During the wintertime, all the lily pads, all the lily pads kind of die off. But, same thing as fishing some of your community parks this time of year in Georgia is you just kind of have to go with what Texas rig large worms, especially in Evans County. You can fish every there are stumps or old cypress trees that have been cut off or fell over through the years of this place being there. But throwing a weightless Cinco, stick bait, whatever you want to call it, next to these stumps and just let that thing float down. My choice are, this water's dark, so black and blues, just regular black, anything June bug color, stuff like that is a good choice to start out with. A lot of the fisheries that I have here in the southeast part of Georgia is dark tannic water. So you're talking a lot of black and blues, a lot of June bugs, a lot. I use pinks, whites, things like that. So not a whole lot of tackle to carry with you either. You can carry a couple rods. I would probably carry a medium heavy, Casting rod, maybe a 6.3 gear ratio or 7.2. I like to throw a spinning rod with my finesse stuff, so wacky and things like that. I just carry a medium spinning rod, maybe maybe 1,000 or 2,000 series reel. But fishing these public fishing areas is enjoyable. They do get beat up a lot, but there's several throughout the southern parts of the state here. You got Dodge County PFA, which is in Eastman, Georgia. Last year, I was fishing a tournament there. I was throwing a Texas rig pegged stick bait in South African color, which is a black and blue with silver and red flake. Ended up boating a big fish for the tournament at 22 inches. But yeah, it's, you're fishing these public fishing areas. There's a lot of information out there that people put out on YouTube or even on their websites that if they write about them, or you can just reach out to some people that fish the area a lot, and most of the time people will tell you what are good baits for what time of year around here. Another good PFA is Ogeechee PFA. Going back to Dodge for a minute, Dodge, Ogeechee, Silver Lake or Panic Pond are all managed heavily. So the state of Georgia has put that in place because they're trying to grow big bass, right? Everybody's trying to grow big bass nowadays. So the state of Georgia has put a slot limit. That's what I was thinking was a slot limit on these fish. So I know Dodge has one, Ogeechee has one, and Silver Lake or Panic Pond down in southeast or southwest Georgia, around Lake Seminole. They have a slot limit as well. And another one to throw out there is Hugh Gillis, which is outside of Dublin, Georgia. But these PFAs can be enjoyable. If you're off work during the middle of the week when a lot more people are working, like me, I work in law enforcement. So I have a lot of time during the middle of the week to fish. Be a good time to go out because the waterways aren't heavily trafficked. Boats with other kayakers just for pleasure, other bank fishermen. But yeah, just go to your local natural resource page at whatever you get information off of. But in Georgia, it's the Georgia Department of Natural Resources. It tells you a lot of information. It tells you a lot of places to fish and things like that. I can vouch for a lot of these PFAs in the Southeast because I've caught fish there. At Hugh Gillis, I know that I've caught fish on weightless paddle tails, swim baits, shaky heads. I know in Dodge for sure, a black and blue with silver and red flake shaky head. I fish a lot of the Z-Man SMH head that was designed by Brian Latimer. I fish a lot of that head, but I'm thinking about I've placed my order, got my worms in from Dubrow Fishing. So I'm gonna start fishing with their worm designed for a shaky head this later in this year into next year. if you don't know anything about Dubrow Fishing, check them out. Dubrow Fishing is also a sponsor of the Paddle and Fin as well. So they got a lot of products, a lot of plastic products out there, from trick worms to special design worms for certain techniques. They got crawls, they got Neds. So reach out to them, order you a pack, see how I like them. But yeah, fishing these public fishing areas, they are fun to fish, and just, if you don't have a whole lot of time to travel, it is the best to look around the area, your area, and just go fish them areas, because they can produce big fish. Some of the other areas I like to fish down here in South is rivers, smaller rivers. In particular, the Ogeechee River. A lot of people come down here during June, July, and August and fish it for red breast. It's a world. It's state known for red breast fishing. But I grew up on the Ogeechee River fishing it with my dad, my grandfather, and my uncles. And literally the river is like less than a mile from my house here. And just want to kind of put this out. If y'all don't know, we were devastated here in the southeast Georgia with Debbie, with the flooding. And it moved on up to the coast of South Carolina and North Carolina and caused some flooding up there as well. But the water's finally receded down here where people can get back to living. There was a lot of houses flooded. So we just kind of want to, from the Man Contained Fishing Podcast, we want to say we are praying for you, and hopefully everything will get back to normal living conditions for everybody. But yeah, my fishing's been messed up for the last couple of weeks, so I hadn't had a chance to get out on the water because of all the flooding. When you got the river rose up to 19 and a half foot, it was the third highest flood stage in Georgia history. So the Ogeechee River outside of Reedsville is another good little river. Kind of smaller in size compared to the Ogeechee. When it gets down, it runs real slow. But great fishing in all these rivers, and the Canoochee especially. Canoochee holds special to me in my heart for one reason, and I'll tell you that reason in a few minutes. But fishing a lot of these South Georgia rivers, and even the PFAs and local parks and rec stuff, is you just have to kind of go with what you know as a bass fisherman, and don't overthink it. I think a lot of us kind of overthink things, and we carry a ton of tackle, a ton of rods in our kayaks, and it's just, I'm to a point where I'm thinking about just going down to 3 rods, 2 casting rods and a spinning rod, everything I need. And, just start throwing some tackle boxes together and just kind of downsizing a lot. Because when you hit these backwaters and these smaller areas, it's just, a lot to carry and a lot to do. And when you're fishing bigger lakes like Clarks Hill or Sinclair or Lake Blackshear, yeah, there's more there's more techniques to use, but here in South Georgia, really you only need 3 rods. It's to a point that I think like I said, we overthink things and we're not keeping it simple. I like to keep things simple for people when I talk to them. You get all these. You get overwhelmed as a beginner, especially in the kayak world, because you don't know what kayak to buy, what tackle to start with, things like that. But just keeping it simple. Carrying a medium heavy rod, casting rod, maybe carrying a medium casting rod, and then you got your spinning reel for your smaller stuff, for your finesse techniques. You can throw Texas rigs, you can throw crankbaits, you can throw small jerk baits if you just keep it simple, right? Like what we always said in school, keep it simple, stupid. Just trying to keep things simple for everybody. Like when I pull up the boat ramps at the river or at the lakes or just wherever I'm fishing at, people kind of look at me with a motor on a kayak, and they're like, hey, how do you like fishing out of a kayak? And I tell them it's real simple. You throw it in your truck, throw it on a trailer. Don't have to worry about putting that $4.19 worth of marine fuel in that motor. And you throw and go. I call it throwing and going. But yeah, it's just I like to keep it. I'm to a point now where I get tired of carrying, like I said, 10 rods with me every time I go fishing. So I'm just thinking about keeping it simple, keeping it real, and just catch fish and kind of get the word out there as a kayak angler here in Southeast Georgia. I live inland, but I have the coast next to me. So, but I don't saltwater fish, and I don't know anything about saltwater fishing. So I grew up freshwater fishing, and that's what I've stuck with in my roots. People say, well, why don't you go catch some redfish or some trout or some sheephead in your kayak? I was like, because I don't know anything about it. And I would have to find somebody locally that could take me out, show me the ropes, show me the places where to catch them, because there's a lot of vast tides, water clarity, things you have to deal with as saltwater fishermen. So it's just to a point where on my freshwater side, I just want to I want to get back to the simple simplicity of things and not having to carry so much tackle, so many rods and reels in the boat when I go river fishing or when I go to the PFA, especially river fishing, because you got trees hanging over, you got rods sticking up. I fish out of a new canoe F12, which I have the luxury of laying my rods down and putting my tips towards the front of my boat into some tip savers that they have designed them on the front of the new canoe and strap them in that way. So, I can't have 10 rods on the deck in a canoe. That's just a no-brainer, because you'll be kicked them off and lost them. But going back to river fishing, I grew up, like I said, on the river, and we just threw, as a kid, I threw a lot of plastic worms. That's it. That's the only bait I ever thrown. And But, then I got introduced to buzz bait fishing by my uncle, spinner bait fishing by an uncle. So, really, you can just take you fishing here in Southeast Georgia. You really can take one tackle box, put you a few plastic worms in there or a bag, keep them in the bag and throw them in another bag, and your hooks, your sinkers. Really, the only colors you really need are black and blue or a June bug or fishing these rivers down here in Georgia. Because really, that's all these dark rivers. That's the only things you're going to be throwing anyway. I'm not going to be throwing a crankbait inside of a river with a bunch of hangers because I ain't going to be fighting getting unhooked from log jams and underwater structure like that in a river flowing with current. Spinner baits. Spinner baits are good to throw on laydowns, especially, whites, yellow and white chartreuse. I like fishing the Colorado blades. The gold Colorado blades are on my spinner baits. So really, there's only 2 spinner baits, right? Now you got a pack of worms or several packs of worms, and your terminal tackle, your hooks, and your weights. 2 spinner baits, and now I'm gonna give you 2 buzz baits. Both of these buzz baits, either white or black, or purple. You can throw 3: a purple, a black, or a white. That's only 3 buzz baits. So really, if you get a 3700 Plano or a whatever kind of box you like to use, you got 3 buzz baits, 2 spinner baits, and your terminal tackle. That's keeping it simple, right? You got a medium heavy rod. You got a medium rod. Or let's even go into taking 2 medium heavies with you, or a heavy, a medium heavy, and a spinning cast to throw some weightless trick worms or things like that on it. Weightless Texas rig trick worms, which the river bass down here love a trick worm. Pink, white, and black. So if you're coming down to Southeast Georgia, you really don't need to pack your whole truck full of your gear and travel down. 3 rods, 1 tackle box, several packs of worms. But yeah, so we've covered the local areas, we've covered state PFAs, public fishing areas, and we've covered some rivers. One river that holds dearly to my heart is the Canoochee River. The Canoochee River is located, I'll drive about 20-25 minutes to get there. But I had the opportunity to fish it a lot out of my kayak. And why it holds dearly to my heart is because I've caught my personal best out of there out of a kayak. And also it's a state record for that, for inches in that river. One midday, I left my house around, I say like 9 o'clock. I was off during the middle of the week. Nobody was on the river. When I pull up to the boat ramp, there's no trucks there. There's nobody on the bank fishing. So I threw the kayak in, had my paddle, put my PFD on, put my catch board in there. Like I said, I carried 1 box. I knew that I was going to be fishing plastic worms all day. So I didn't catch, I carried 2 medium heavy rods. One had a little faster reel on it than the other. So I started paddling upriver, just getting to an area I like to fish because it's a little bit further from the boat ramp. And I just started throwing a big Texas rig worm, curly tail, made by Zoom. It's a June bug. I don't hide anything from nobody. When people ask me what I catch fish on, I'm gonna tell them, because I want them to be successful as well when they come fish these rivers and ponds and everything down here. But peg Texas rig, big June bug color. I think it was a monster worm. I caught one small fish, maybe like 15 and a half inches on one bank. Then I'm paddling upriver and just kind of casting here and there on some lay downs. And, you know, two fish you have to worry about in the river down here that they're good fighting fish, but they both have teeth. A jackfish, which is a chain pickerel, and a mudfish, which is, people call them grinnels. We call them mudfish down here, but I caught a couple of them on the way up and on the way back down. But they're fun to catch. I know some people eat the jackfish. I've heard people eating the mudfish, like maybe like a salmon patty or something, but I've never had it. I probably would never try it either, not unless somebody cooks it for me. Yeah, so as I'm paddling upriver, there's a guy that owns a plantation back on the river on both sides, and he's built a big bridge. And I was paddling upriver. I was taking a picture of the river with the bridge in it and just being photogenic that day. And then I saw a tree kind of to my left that had a big stump, like a big root stump that was kind of exposed off the bank. The water was running around it, making it what we call an eddy, and it was foam on the backside. Fishing these rivers down here, if you see foam, you need to throw the foam. That's a no-brainer here fishing these rivers in southeast Georgia, because them fish will back up underneath that foam where that eddy kind of runs around that, and it creates a backflow. So when that water's running down, and say if this was the stump, and that water's running down, and it flows back around to the backside of that stump, that's where that fish is going to stage at, because it's going to wash bait fish, it's going to wash crawfish, or any type of targeted lunch for them. So I threw that big Zoom monster worm Texas rig over there. And when I went to pull it the first time, I thought I was hung. And then I pulled it the second time, and I saw the line start running upriver. I was like, that's got to be a jackfish or a mudfish. And when I set the hook on it, I was like, holy crap, I don't know what I got. And it took me for a ride in that F12 made by New Canoe. I think I was using a 6.6 medium heavy rod made by Lew's, and it had that thing bent double. I was like, crap, this thing's a big mudfish, and it would never come up. So I'm sitting there trying to paddle back and got the rod in one hand, and the fish was stripping a little bit of drag. So when I got the rod on my right side of my kayak, the fish kind of swirled, and I saw the tail. I said, oh crap, that's a big bass. Man, a 50-year-old guy was like a little kid catching a 2-pound bass out of their granddaddy's pond. Man, I was hollering, hooping. If somebody was down on the river, they thought I was probably being killed or something like that. But so the fish makes another run behind me, so I wrap the rod around my head, get him onto the left side of the kayak, and she finally goes belly up. I said, well, she goes belly up on the water, get my dip net, I dip her, get her in the kayak, and I'm just astounded by the length of this fish. And so I get her on the catch board, I put her on the catch board, man, I'm shaking like nothing else. I'm just, my nerves are shot. I'm out of breath from hollering, heart beating out my chest. So I get her on the measuring board, and she kicks the measuring board at 25.25 inches. And I'm like, holy crap, this is my personal best out of a kayak. So I get her measured, get a few pictures taken of her. I've got the GoPro running. If you want to check out the video, you can go over to my YouTube channel and look up Canoochee River Big Bass Alert. And you'll see, you'll hear everything that's coming out of my mouth, like a little kid. But who doesn't want to catch a big bass in their lifetime, right? You know, you get all these big fish caught out of Texas, Florida, California. You know, the searches break the world record for all bass fishermen, right? So I'm sitting here in a little plastic boat in this river with a 25.25 inch bass on this catch board. And like I said, I got the pictures taken. I was actually in a tournament as well, fishing an online tournament. And so I text a picture to my wife, Christina, and it was just, she comes back, she says, I've never seen a fish that big. I was like, this is my personal best out of a kayak. I didn't weigh her because I didn't want to weigh her. I didn't want to keep her out of the water as long as I had to. So after I took my pictures, I put her back in the dip net, kind of let her get her back revived after being out of the water in the fight and everything. And she started swimming real good in the dip net. So I picked her back up and just kind of eased her back in the water, and she swam off for another person to catch her. Hopefully somebody will catch that fish, and it'll be 26 inches or 27, you know, whatever. You usually don't see, especially down here in South Georgia, you don't really see river fish get that big because a lot of people feed their families off these waterways. And, you know, 12, 13-inch bass and 12-inch bass in Georgia is legal to keep. So, but yeah, I was graceful enough to submit that to the state of Georgia under the Angler Award, the Georgia Angler Award program. And as you can tell back here behind me, I've got my plaque right there. The 2022 Georgia Angler Award for 2022. And I was also, as far as lengthwise, I hold the record for that river at 25.25 inches. So I'm very proud of that as myself. I hope that one day everybody catches their personal best. It's going to take me a long time to break that, I think. Just because there's so many fishermen out there now, and these fish are beginning to get what we call finicky, just because of all the baits they've seen and things like that. But yeah, I was ecstatic when I submitted that fish to the state of Georgia, and they said, well, it's a river record for a length fish. So I had the opportunity to not only submit the fish, but also have the pictures to prove and the video to prove it, right? Yeah, everybody wants, well, you got pictures of the fish, you got video of the fish. Yeah, I got both. Like I said, you can check it out on the YouTube channel. Just search for Canoochee River Big Bass Alert on my YouTube channel over at Southeast Georgia Kayak Bass Fishing on YouTube. But yeah, we want to make knowledgeable to these areas in South Georgia, because people travel through here going to Florida, or traveling, taking their families on vacation, or just looking for different places to fish. And as an insight of South Georgia fishing, I wanted to kind of give you my insight of where to start at in this area. So, but yeah, it's exciting. All these places are exciting to fish because you never know what you catch. You know, most of these places have everything from bass to catfish to brim to jackfish to mudfish, whatever. So it's just, I just want to relay that information on to my watchers, my listeners here on the Main Contained Fishing Podcast, as well as Paddle and Fin network, because there's so many people that want to fish different areas. My goal in my life is to travel up north. I want to travel up north to catch a smallmouth. We do have smallmouth here in Georgia, but you have to go to North Georgia. But I kind of want to travel out of state because I want to experience some of the bigger smallmouth, right? A 6-7 pound, 8 pound smallmouth. I don't know if they get that big or not, but that's my goal. I want to catch a smallmouth. Georgia does have 10 different species of black bass. And you can travel throughout the whole state of Georgia to catch these black bass species. Another one is the species is a shoal bass. The only area in the whole United States you can catch a shoal bass is Georgia. So these bass, the shoal bass, are particular or one of a kind of fish. So I wouldn't mind catching one and maybe getting a replica mount, that and a smallmouth replica mount made for my wall back here. I think that'd be cool. But yeah, just kind of recapping and summarizing, this cast for you people is, if you're looking for places to fish here in Southeast Georgia, contact me. You can reach out to Daniel at SEGKBF.com. You can go on my website at SEGKBF.com. You can find me on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook as well. But if you come down here, definitely look me up because I'll be glad to go fishing with you if I'm off that day. But it's a fun way to meet people and to collaborate with people, is to get the information out to all y'all that are listening, that are watching the podcast. So we at the Paddle and Fin Network, there's a series of us that are throughout the whole night. We got guys out in Colorado, we got guys in West Virginia, North Carolina, even Canada, over in Wisconsin, Illinois, that way. So if you have any questions or looking places to fish in that area, just look these guys up. They kind of added me to the podcast this year. This is actually my second show on the podcast with the Paddle and Fin Network. We're just trying to get as much information out there of what fisheries and what people are wanting to hear on, like, kayak bass fishing wise. It's a growing sport. If you don't know where to start, just reach out to any of us. We'll be glad to help you. Just be safe on the water. And always wear your PFD and fish on. And thank you for tuning in to the Main Contained Fishing Podcast tonight. And we look forward to bringing you in another exciting episode next cast. I'm not going to break the news yet, but you want to tune in because we're also doing a giveaway of a yak rod on that podcast as well. So tune in next Thursday night, 7 p.m. on the Main Contained Fishing here and on the Paddle and Fin Network. And always wear your PFD and fish on.